The loss of the garden. Long ago, before cities rose or seas were crossed in ships, there was a garden unlike any other. It was a place of quiet beauty and gentle peace. This garden was called Eden. It was a home, a resting place, where everything lived in harmony. The air was soft and sweet like honey, and the trees were full of fruit, ripe and waiting. In the midst of this garden there were two people. They were the first people, made with careful hands and loving thought. They were named Adam and Eve. They walked slowly among the trees, their feet touching the soft grass, their eyes full of wonder. They heard birds singing high in the branches and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. They knew the garden well because they cared for it. The animals were their friends. Lions and lambs shared the green fields. Each day they tended to the plants, naming the animals and learning the ways of the earth. The garden was their whole world, safe and full of light. In the middle of the garden stood two special trees. One was the tree of life, whose fruit gave life that never ends. The other was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God had told Adam and Eve that they could eat the fruit from any tree, except this one. It was a gentle rule, a quiet whisper of trust. The days passed slowly, filled with soft sounds and stillness. The sun rose gently in the morning and rested softly at night. Adam and Eve enjoyed the gift of the garden, walking in the cool shadows or the warm sunlight, speaking to each other and listening to the songs of the world. But in the garden there was also a serpent. The serpent was clever and quiet, moving softly among the branches. The Bible tells us the serpent was more crafty than any other wild animal that God had made. It spoke in a low voice to Eve, asking questions that made her stop and think. The serpent said, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" Eve looked at the serpent, then at the trees around her. She remembered what God had said, that they could eat from any tree except the one in the middle. "No," she answered softly, "we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but not from the tree in the middle. God said if we eat from it or touch it, we will die." But the serpent whispered again, "You will not surely die. God knows that when you eat from that tree, your eyes will be opened. You will know good and evil just like God." Eve felt a stirring inside her. She looked at the tree, at its shining fruit, glowing softly like the morning sun. She wondered about the serpent's words and the knowledge that seemed so near. The fruit looked good to eat, and it seemed to promise something new. Gently, like a soft breeze, Eve reached out and took a piece of the fruit. She bit into it. The flavor was sweet, but it was different from anything she had tasted before. It was a moment full of quiet change. Then she gave some to Adam, who was with her, and he ate it too. Instantly, their eyes were opened in a new way. They saw the world differently. They realized they were naked, and felt a strange feeling of shame. So, they sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves, a small and humble attempt to hide from the new knowledge inside them. As the sun began to set, they heard a soft but clear voice coming from the garden. It was God, walking in the cool of the evening breeze. Adam and Eve heard God's footsteps and felt the warmth of that presence. Yet they were afraid now, and they hid among the trees. God asked gently, "Where are you?" Adam answered, "I heard your voice and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." God knew everything, and he spoke with kindness, asking questions that helped Adam and Eve understand what had happened. When God saw the choices they made, he spoke softly about the world's future. He explained that life would now be different. The ground would be harder to work, and the earth would not always give its fruits so easily. Eve would feel pain in bearing children, and both would live with a new understanding of good and evil, and the challenges that come with that knowledge. God made garments of skin for Adam and Eve to wear. These coverings were a sign of care, even as they faced the new world outside the garden. Then God gently said they could not stay in the garden forever. To keep the tree of life safe, and to prevent them from living in a world of endless pain, he sent them out. The garden was closed behind them, guarded by cherubim with flaming swords, beautiful and strong, keeping the way to Eden safe and secret. So Adam and Eve stepped outside the garden's gate into a world that was wider, sometimes harder, but full of fresh air and new possibilities. The garden was lost to them, but they carried its memory deep in their hearts. As night came and stars twinkled softly above, the story of Eden became a quiet whisper, a gentle reminder of a place where everything was new and whole, a place waiting, beyond the reach of time. And now we pause, resting with the stillness of this moment, holding the soft silence of a world forever changed. The years in the world outside the garden stretched long before Adam and Eve, a vast landscape of both promise and struggle. The earth was untamed and wild. no longer a sanctuary of perfect peace, but a realm where the lessons of their choice would be learned anew. The light of dawn touched the hills and valleys, marking the rhythm of this new existence, a pulse of life far removed from the quiet sanctity of Eden. Adam looked out over the land, feeling the weight of toil pressing upon him. The soil beneath his feet was hard and stubborn. It did not yield its sustenance without effort. Here, he was not a master of ease, but a steward called to labor tirelessly, to coax life from rock and dust. Yet within that labor there was a dignity, a partnership uneasy and complex, between man and earth. Eve, too, felt the change deeply. The child she might bear would come into a world of pain. She understood now the sharpness of birth, the sleepless nights, the vulnerability held in fragile hands. But also, she saw in this a strong thread of hope, the promise of continuation, a chance to love and nurture all that grew from her spirit. She might teach her children kindness, wisdom, and resilience, instilling in them values born from the memory of that first home. Together, they built a life. They cleared patches of wild growth, planting seeds with hands calloused but hopeful. Water they drew from streams, sparkling with fresh coldness. Every day was measured by the sun's arc, a rhythm shaped entirely by the earth itself. There was hardship, often sharp and unrelenting, but also occasional moments of laughter, of warmth between them when twilight fell and the stars blinked alive in the night sky. Among the stars, it was as if a silent echo of Eden lingered, a reminder of beauty lost, yes, but also of the possibilities still threaded through the human spirit. The nights invited reflection, gentle musings on what had been and what might yet be. As seasons came and passed, Adam and Eve's family grew. Their children walked with dreams shimmering in their eyes. Yet the lessons from the garden remained, etched in their hearts, a cautious reverence for the balance of command and freedom, of trust and choice. Stories were told around flickering fires, retellings of a place where no shadow of fear had ever fallen, where joy had been innocent and boundless. These stories wove a tapestry connecting each generation to that first sacred moment, to the tree, the serpent, the choice, and the hope beneath it all. In time, Adam and Eve stood beneath the vast sky, feeling their lives stretch beyond themselves. They knew the journey was never just theirs alone. It belonged to all who would follow. The world outside the gates of Eden was as much a part of a grand design as the garden itself, a stage for growth, for freedom forged through trials, for love that carries beyond loss. And so with soft breaths carried on evening winds, a quiet peace settled. The garden was gone, yet its memory remained, a silent song within them. The loss was painful, profound, but also the beginning of everything that would ever be. The unfolding story of life, in all its light and shadow, mystery and grace. The seasons cycled on, patient and steady, as Adam and Eve shaped their world beyond the garden's boundaries. Earthborn storms rolled across the open plains, stirring up dust and rain, while warm sun softened the soil and coaxed life from seedbeds tended by careful hands. The rhythm of days and nights became the frame within which all labor and rest found their place. Eve watched her children grow, marveling at how each bore the spark of life that had originated in that first breath outside Eden. Her heart carried the stories of the garden like a treasured flame, sometimes flickering in moments of uncertainty, but never extinguished. Through her voice, the memory passed from mother to child, the gentle wind through the boughs, the harmony of living things, the quiet holiness of a place where pain had not yet shadowed the heart. Adam's hands, weathered and strong, told of the earth's embrace. Each furrow turned in the soil was not just for survival, but for nurturing promise. He often paused to look up at the sky, tracing the constellations with a longing quiet as the night itself. The stars seemed to dance with their own secrets, whispering of vastness and a future yet to be written. Though the ache of Eden's loss lingered always, it did not consume them. Instead, it seeded a profound resilience. They learned that the world was not simply a place of exile, but a canvas, raw, imperfect, and open. Each moment of tenderness shared between them, each lesson taught, swelled into a larger story of life, pushing gently against the edges of sorrow. When the children laughed as they wove through wildflowers, chasing the wind, Eve felt the pulse of hope. It beat steadily beneath the weight of hardship. Theirs was a different innocence now, one not sheltered by the perfection of the garden, but one grown wild, shaped by knowing both joy and pain. In the quiet hours, when the day's work had settled into soft, tired sighs, Adam and Eve would sometimes sit by the flickering glow of a fire, its warm light casting long shadows behind them. There was comfort in the crackle, and in the silence between conversations, a shared solace that needed no words. The flames seemed to echo their own journey, a transformation of raw elements into something enduring and alive. Seasons passed, gathering into years. Families grew, spreading like the branches of a cherished tree, reaching toward the sun. Each new life was a reminder woven into the fabric of their days, proof of persistence and an enduring bond with the earth beneath and the sky above. Their children learned to listen to the wind, to the call of birdsong, to the subtle shifting of the seasons. Eve taught them the value of care, of keeping balance within themselves and with the world. Adam showed them how to read the land, to respect its power while bending it with patience and reverence. There were harder days, of course, droughts that tested the roots of their patience, illness that quietly whispered of the fragility of flesh, losses that stilled a moment's breath. Yet even these sorrows found space beside the strong undercurrent of hope, as waves stretching endlessly toward an unseen shore. Over time, the stories of Eden took on new life, not only as tales of a perfect past, but as seeds for meditation on love, loss, and renewal. These narratives wove through their conversations and firelit evenings, linking the past and the future in a gentle chain of remembrance and wisdom. Adam and Eve grew older, their faces marked by time's sculpting hand, but their spirits held a quiet strength. They had become caretakers not only of the land, but of memory itself, carrying the weight of a sacred moment that had shaped everything, teaching their children and their children's children to accommodate sorrow with grace. In the calm of twilight, when the sky softened to hues of lavender and rose, they often found themselves reflecting on the vastness of all they had witnessed. Where once was the garden, now stretched a wide and wild world, intricate, untamed, alive with the possibility of growth and change. And the garden remained sealed, guarded by cherubim with flaming swords, eternally out of reach. Its true essence had not vanished. It lived quietly within every breath, taken beyond its gates, residing in the resilience of hearts willing to hope, in the gentle unfolding of life that touched earth and sky alike. Their journey was no longer defined by loss alone, but by an ever-unfolding story of light and shadow, where the gentle peace of acceptance met the stirring pulse of new beginnings. Underneath the vast canopy of stars, Adam and Eve rested, two souls bound by a journey that was at once an ending and a beginning, holding close the sacred memory that would forever light their path. In the quiet hush of early dawn, the air soft with the lingering cool of night's breath, Adam rose before the world brightened. He moved slowly, each step measured and sacred, toward the patch of earth he had turned so many times. The soil held stories of seed and rain, of sun and shadow, and Adam listened. His hands brushed the earth gently, feeling its warmth begin to grow beneath his fingers. It was a ritual born not only of necessity but of devotion, a connection that tethered him to the rhythm of the world despite the absence of the garden that once cradled their beginnings. Eve was already awake when he returned, her silhouette framed by the dim cast of awakening light through the hut's walls. She held one of their younger children close against her chest, a delicate rhythm of breath and heartbeat weaving a steady song of comfort. Their children's faces, each marked by the wildness and kindness bred into their souls, caught the soft dawn as if it were a blessing. The family gathered by the fire, its coals whispering embers as they came alive with warmth. Here, amid the unyielding wild, there was a fragile sanctuary, breathing life into the slow dance of morning. Adam spoke in quiet tones, sharing lessons sown with patience and care. How to find water beneath the earth's skin, how to read the subtle shifts of the wind, how to honor the trees that gave them shade and shelter. Eve's stories wove through these teachings, her voice carrying the weight of lost paradise, but also a fierce tenderness. She told of the emerald leaves that never wilted, the pure light that tasted like joy, and the days when the sun seemed to embrace all things tenderly. Yet she told these tales not to dwell in mourning, but to kindle remembrance, a bridge between what was and what might still be. Outside their quiet hearth, the land stretched, raw and untamed. The wildflowers that bloomed each season told of endurance, petals unfolding despite the harshness. The children learned to follow their blooms, tracking seasons by the flowers that dared to burst forth. This small victory, life asserting itself, was a secret song in their hearts, a reminder that hope persisted beyond the stars that rose unfailingly each night above. There were days when the weight of loss pressed down, a heavy silence, thickening the air. Illness whispered among their kin, drought cracked the earth's surface, and demand loomed like a shadow. Yet strength blossomed in shared hands, in quiet moments where Eve's fingers traced old scars and Adam's hands shaped tender promises into furrows deep enough to hold the next seed. Together, they crafted a tapestry of resilience. Their children carried this woven spirit, speaking in languages born from the land's voice. Names for streams, songs for the wind, celebrations for the moon's tender gaze. Through each child, the story softened edges and hardened resolve, morphing loss into strength. The echoes of Eden were not forgotten, but transformed, shaped by pain and love bound forever within their breath and bone. As years wove into decades, Adam and Eve grew tall with age, moving with quiet grace that spoke of journeys weathered and wisdom earned. The lines on their faces marked the passage of seasons, the unfolding of stories stitched between light and shadow. They became keepers not only of memories but of hope, custodians of the fragile balance between mourning and renewal. In the evenings, when the world bathed in twilight's gentle hues, they sat beneath the canopy of stars, those ancient, steady watchers overhead. Stories spilled softly from their lips, tales that wove past and present, legends that flickered between resolve and reverence. The garden, though forever out of reach, blossomed inside these narratives, a sacred landscape of the heart. One evening, as the firelight flickered against their worn faces, Eve leaned into Adam's side. Their children slept nearby, dream-bound and peaceful. The air was thick with the scent of earth and wood smoke, a scent that carried with it the enduring pulse of the world they had come to nurture. In their laughter, Eve whispered, "I still find the light that once warmed Eden." Adam nodded, his gaze tracing the stars overhead. "And in our hands the promise of the earth's return." The night cradled them in its vastness, a silent guardian of their strength and sorrow. Seasons shifted without haste, and life unfolded in quiet, measured steps. The family's roots plunged deeper into the soil, a testament to years marked by both hardship and gentleness. Where once there was loss, now there were seedlings of hope, frail yet tenacious. Their children, now grown, carried forward the lessons of balance and respect, their voices weaving new chapters into the land's ongoing saga. On days when the wind was still and the world seemed to hold its breath, Adam and Eve would walk beneath trees heavy with leaves, their fingers brushing bark that held the memory of countless suns. They spoke little then, their quiet understanding a sacred language that needed no words. The garden was a distant bloom, yet its essence lingered, the pulse of life flowing through their veins and the very earth beneath their feet. And in that pulse a truth endured, a profound alchemy of loss transformed into light, a testament to the unyielding spirit born in the heart of humanity. As twilight softened into night, and the family gathered once more by the fire's warmth, Eve's eyes reflected the shimmering stars. Her voice, low and steady, carried a final blessing, one that echoed deep within the stillness. Though we walk far from Eden's gates, its breath lives within us, a lasting flame that will guide generations yet to bloom. Adam nodded, the calm strength in his gaze a steady anchor. Together, beneath the endless sky, they rested, bound in memory, hope, and the unwavering promise of new beginnings. In the days that followed, the gentle rhythms of the family's life unfolded like petals pressed slowly open to the sun. Each morning, Adam would rise with a renewed awareness of the passage of time. He traced the lines of the sky, watching how the light shifted, cool and tender in dawn's earliest breaths, then bold with midday heat, finally softening to lingering gold at sunset. Eve moved among the small garden patches they had begun to cultivate, hands careful, coaxing green shoots from the earth with patient care. Their children carried the legacy of their teachings, venturing further each day into the land that had once been the cradle of their family's beginnings. They listened closely to the wind's whispers through grasses and trees, deciphering messages that grounded them in a place both familiar and ever-changing. Flowers that thrived resiliently amidst rocky soil became landmarks of time, their colors marking celebrations or quiet moments of remembrance. Language itself grew richer, threaded with metaphor drawn from the natural world, the way a flowing stream suggested continuity, or how the stubborn gloom told of endurance. When illness crept quietly into their midst, it was met with the same softness that held their other trials. A collective breath, a shared touch of hands, the steady pulse of hope passed from one heart to another. They gathered medicinal herbs as taught by Adam's careful hand, small leaves and roots bearing sense of healing. Though the sickness sometimes made days long and heavy, it never stilled the family's determination to nurture life and love through the challenge. The softer moments, the evening stories, the songs sung low around flickering flames, became the medicine that soothed deeper wounds. On one such evening, as stars stitched silver across the darkening dome, Adam and Eve sat side by side. Wrinkles mapped their faces like ancient rivers, each telling a tale of laughter and sorrow, growth and loss. They held hands without need for words, feeling the quiet pulse of shared history. In that silence, memories shimmered like the constellations above, the garden lush and vibrant, distant yet alive within them, a wellspring of promise and a delicate ache. Their grandchildren gathered nearby, eyes bright with wonder and curiosity. The eldest sang a song newly composed, weaving together images of blooming flora and shifting winds, with the cycles of life they had all embraced. The younger ones listened, captivated not just by melody, but by the profound sense that they were part of a lineage. Eve smiled softly as she watched them, feeling warmth bloom in her chest. It was as if the fire that had once warmed her spirit in Eden still kindled within this new generation. But fiercely alive, she whispered a blessing into the cool night air. She spoke of the breath of Eden, a gentle wind that would forever breathe through their veins, and of a guiding flame that no darkness could extinguish. Adam nodded beside her, his voice low and steady. He spoke of roots deep in fertile soil, tangled with stories and lived experience, anchoring them even as the world shifted around them. "We are all part of this," he said, "woven into something greater than ourselves." The family rested beneath the vast embrace of the night sky, bound by more than blood, united in memory and hope. Sleep came softly, carrying them through to the promise of dawn. In the days that followed, the seasons continued their quiet conversation with the earth. Spring whispered renewal in bursts of soft color, summer hummed with warm, steady sunlight, autumn rustled with golden leaves in preparation, winter's breath lay gentle and still, a pause for growth unseen. The family moved with these cycles, finding peace in their predictability, even as their own lives moved in new directions. New stories were born, tales of children's first steps into the wider world, of friendships forged beyond their immediate circle, of lessons learned from careful observation of nature's smallest creatures. The songs grew in complexity and sorrow and joy, reflecting a deepening understanding of the fragility and beauty of life. Adam and Eve grew quieter, their voices softer but no less important. They became the keepers of the collective memory, passing down the stories of Eden, not as a place lost, but as a spirit kindled within each of their descendants. It was a gift of presence rather than possession, a practice of remembrance woven through everyday moments. One afternoon, Eve sat by a small stream, the water bubbling past her fingers. As she watched the light dance on the surface, she felt a profound gratitude, a sense of fullness that mingled with sadness and hope. The garden in its original form was gone, undeniably so, but its essence had not been lost. It lived in laughter that bubbled through the children at play, in the resilient blooms that thrust up through dry soil, in the quiet determination of hands working the earth. Adam joined her then, and together they looked across the landscape, a mosaic of wildflowers, dirt paths worn smooth by countless footsteps, towering trees that whispered ancient songs. Their journey was far from over, and they knew the path ahead might bring hardships yet unknown. But beneath the weight of all that had been and all that would be, a steady light endured. The family gathered again that night, candles flickering softly beside woven mats. The air carried the faint scent of crushed leaves and herbs. Stories unfolded, the younger ones sharing discoveries of places beyond the paw prints that traced familiar routes, the older recounting lessons learned from watching the endless dance between sun and shadow. Adam, with a voice weathered yet strong, spoke of the importance of holding the past gently, not as chains to bind them, but as roots to strengthen their footing. Eve added her quiet wisdom, that love is the soil from which hope grows, resilient and tender, capable of nourishing all that follows. As sleep wove its quiet spell, the family settled into a shared dream, one where the garden's heartbeat echoed softly beneath their feet, where the breath of Eden stirred the air, warm and waiting. Morning would come, and with it, another day to nurture life, carry memory, and sow seeds of future light. The story of the garden, though begun in loss, was now a story of eternal becoming, of growth beneath stars, of roots dug deep, and of a promise that blossoms eternally in the hearts of those who remember. The wind shifted softly beneath the canopy of stars, carrying with it the subtle scents of earth and distant blooms. Eve's hands cradled a small sprig of lavender, its fragile purple flowers dancing in the moonlight. She breathed in deeply, letting the cool night air fill her lungs, a quiet melody rising between the beats of her heart. Around them, the family remained settled in the hush of night, each presence a silent thread in a tapestry woven with trust and love. Adam sat nearby, his gaze tracing constellations that had long guided humankind. His fingers lightly touched the soil, feeling the pulse of life beneath. All this, he said softly, is the garden now. Not the one we lost, but the one we build with every choice, every shared secret, every kindness we offer. His voice was a gentle echo in the stillness. Eve smiled, a warm glimmer reaching her eyes. It's true, the spirit isn't trapped in any place or time. It moves with us, we carry it forward. Even when the paths seem tangled, the breath of Eden ripples in the leaves, the smile of a child, the quiet moments like this. As the night deepened, their thoughts wandered to the children who had played among the wildflowers in daylight. Their laughter had once filled the fields like sunlight on water, a bright current of hope threading through the air. Those days had become memories now, tucked away like precious stones shining beneath the layers of daily life. Yet in the simplicity of a glance, the innocence of childhood continued to live. A slow calmness settled over Eve as she imagined the generations still to come, their tiny hands reaching out to brush dew from petals, their eyes wide with wonder at a spider's delicate web or the gentle hum of an unseen bee. In every unspoken question, a seed was sown. Adam's voice drew her back. The stories we tell, not just of what has been, but of what can be, they shape those seeds. Each word is a lantern held steady in the dark. Eve reached out, weaving her fingers with his, and love is the soil beneath, soft enough to grow the roots, yet strong enough to hold them firm. The family's quiet breaths filled the air between them, a shared rhythm more ancient than words. Time itself seemed to slow, folding inward like the petals of a nocturnal bloom. Above, the constellations watched without judgment, their steady gleam a reminder that the vast cycles of night and day, loss and renewal, would always continue. In the days that followed, the family carved new spaces of peace together. Morning light spilled golden across fresh grass, and the children's footsteps traced meandering paths through windswept meadows. New stories took shape, delicate threads interwoven with old memories, tales of courage in the face of change, of gentle hands that healed, of songs sung softly to ease a tired heart. Eve often found herself near the ancient stream, where water whispered of journeys unending. The soft murmur seemed to speak in riddles and promises, its cool touch reminding her that life, like the water, persisted no matter the stones in its course. Here hope grew quiet but unyielding, like moss clinging to shaded rocks. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the trees, she sat beside Adam and mused aloud. Perhaps the garden we lost was never truly gone. It is in us, woven through the stories we carry and the love we give. Her voice was tender, wrapped in certainty born of time. Adam nodded, eyes reflecting the deep hues of earth and sky. The heart of Eden beats inside each of us. Its rhythm guides, even when the path is unclear. Together, they rose, joining the others beneath the spreading branches, where laughter mingled with the songs of birds unseen. The songs had changed, evolving like the seasons, carrying new harmonies yet familiar and true. That evening, circled by family, Eve's fingers traced the lines of a weathered stone, smooth and warm. "We keep this memory here," she said softly, "not as a burden, but as a gift." A gentle flame passed hand to hand. The fire flickered, reflecting in eyes young and old alike. Even in silence, a conversation unfolded, one of connection, resilience, and steadfast hope. The stories of the garden, once thought lost, lived on in new whispers shared beneath the vastness of night. As stars wheeled slowly overhead, Adam spoke again with quiet strength. Remember, we are not alone. Roots grow deep beneath the surface, unseen but holding firm. Our past is the ground from which dreams rise. Eve's gaze touched each face, the careful listening, the quiet smiles, the glimmers of understanding sparkling like dew. And love, she added, is the well we return to when we are weary. It is endless and patient. The night stretched wide and gentle, a soft cradle of endless possibilities. Together, they breathed in the moment, a pause in time where past and future met, held close by the steady pulse of their shared humanity. With the first hint of dawn, light softened the edges of darkness. Eve whispered a blessing to the waking world, a quiet note slipped between the sigh of leaves and the shimmer of morning mist. May the breath of Eden continue to dance in your spirit, a guiding flame lighting the way through all days to come. And as the family rose, ready to meet the unfolding day, Eve saw not loss but the endless garden of life itself, growing, changing, and forever held in the delicate balance of memory and hope. The light shifted softly as the day leaned into the quiet warmth of afternoon. Eve sat once more by the ancient stream, letting her fingers brush the cool water's surface, tracing circles that widened and disappeared like whispers on the wind. Around her, the trees swayed gently, their leaves murmuring stories older than memory itself. This place was more than just water and stone. It was a living thread, tying the past to the present, weaving their small family's journey into a vast tapestry. She thought of the stories Adam had shared earlier, of lanterns guiding feet through the darkest stretches, and felt a gentle pulse of hope. Stories were not just words spoken or written. They were living things, carried in the breath and hearts of those who tell them. They flickered in moments of laughter, glowed in quiet reflection, and flared fiercely when love was needed most. Adam stood nearby, watching the same stream. His eyes held that familiar quiet light, the steady calm of someone grounded in both loss and renewal. The heart of Eden, he repeated softly to himself. It lives inside us all. Eve turned towards him, smile slow and sure. Inside us, yes, like seeds waiting for spring. They may lie dormant for a time, but life stirs beneath the surface. Always. He nodded, and every choice we make nudges them closer to light. Their youngest child emerged from the shade, small feet dancing on the mossy earth. Between them the years unfolded, heavy with memories, but feathered with new beginnings. Even as the garden once known was lost, something equally precious had taken root. A life built not in a perfect place, but through imperfect love, resilience, and the stories that carried their strength. The afternoon waned, marked by the warmth deepening under the sky's gentle gaze. Eve stretched, feeling the familiar ache of a day well lived, of moments held and released like breath. She thought of the weathered stone she had honored that morning, not simply an object, but a talisman of memory, of connection. It was neither burden nor chain, but a gift, as she had said, one that passed from hand to hand, heart to heart. Adam settled beside her, his presence a quiet anchor. Roots unseen, he murmured. We seem separate on the surface, but deep down we are bound together by currents no eye can trace. Eve reached out, fingers finding his. Like this, holding yet unspoken. Love is the soil, ever shifting beneath us, yet steadfast, endless. The melody of their family's laughter drifted through the trees as their children played among the branches and roots. There was a deep comfort in these sounds, a symphony woven through time. The old songs mingled with new, improvisations born of curious spirits and eager hearts. The tapestry grew richer. As the first stars pricked the twilight, Eve spoke a blessing softly, a prayer hanging in the cool air. May the spirit of Eden guide our steps, past the loss, beyond the shadow, lighting paths yet to be discovered. Adam's voice joined hers, low and steady, and may it live in every heart that dares to dream of home. Together, they watched as the night wrapped its gentle cloak around the world, the ancient stream now a mirror reflecting the infinite sky. The garden was gone, yes, but its essence had found a new dwelling, in the stories whispered under ancient branches, in the laughter that echoed through wind and time, in the love rooted deep and growing still. The loss was not an end, but a beginning. And beneath the vast sky, the family continued, turned towards the future, cradled by memory, and held by the enduring spirit of the garden that lived within them all. The night air softened, cool and full of quiet murmurs. Eve brushed a stray lock of hair from her child's face and smiled gently, the little one still clutching a fallen leaf, a treasure from the day. Their world, though marked by absence, grew fuller with each breath, each shared moment underscored by gentle presence. Adam settled beside Eve, his fingers tracing the patterns worn smooth upon the weathered stone she held. "This stone," he began softly, "does not speak with words, but it carries the weight of all that came before us. It reminds us that even the hardest things are shaped by time and care." The firelight flickered, casting shadows that danced like echoes of long-lost laughter. Around them, the dark shapes of trees stood sentinel, their branches whispering secrets known only to the wind and the stars. There was a quiet solace in their steadiness, a reminder that beneath every change lay a foundation, unseen but firm. Eve's gaze drifted upward, tracing the constellation's gentle arcs. Each star, she mused, is a story, a light from a time beyond now. Perhaps, like us, they have traveled far, bearing memories and hopes that have shaped their course. Adam smiled, nodding, and like the stars, our stories too are rays, passed on and refracted through generations. They touch places we cannot see, connecting us to something greater than ourselves. With the night deepening, a soft breeze stirred the edges of their gathering. The youngest child sighed contentedly, eyelids heavy, yet at peace, safe within the arms of this small, enduring family. Eve leaned her head against Adam's shoulder. "The garden we lost was never truly gone, was it? It lives in whispers, in the quiet moments when all is still and we remember." "No," Adam agreed, voice low but clear. "It lives inside us, always unfolding like new leaves from an old tree. Each act of kindness, each breath of hope, is Eden reborn." Between them the stone rested like a beacon, a fragment of the past now entwined with their present and future. They thought of the days before, the abundance, the light, the easy harmony with all living things, and yet they recognized that none of that was gone without leaving gifts behind. A distant owl's call echoed softly, mingling with the lull of the stream's gentle flow. The sound felt like a lullaby, ancient and kind, carrying with it promises not easily spoken but deeply felt. Eve's fingers stroked the small hand in hers, drawing strength from the simplicity of touch. "We carry the garden within in every act of nurturing, in the laughter and tears alike." Adam's eyes met hers, steady and warm. "Our roots have grown deep, beneath the surface, anchoring us even when the soil shifts. That is what holds us true." As the night sky stretched vast and welcoming above, each star seemed to pulse softly, alive with a quiet assurance. Synchronized and slow, became part of the night's rhythm, a gentle song without words. The child's breathing softened further, drifting into dreams woven from the day's warmth and the tender safety of family. Eve closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight and lift of all that had passed and all that awaited. The garden was no longer just a place, it was a feeling, a gentle power, nestled deep within hearts brave enough to hope, to love, to grow. Adam's hand found hers again. "Tomorrow," he whispered, "we will walk new paths, plant new seeds, and tend all that life continues to offer." Eve nodded. "And carry the light of Eden wherever we go." Together, they sat in stillness, watching the ancient stream mirror the stars, a ribbon of reflected light tying past, present, and future in a silent, sacred embrace. The night held them close, cradling the quiet promise of renewal, as the family, rooted in memory, uplifted by hope, turned gently toward the dawn waiting beyond the horizon. Under the vast cloak of night, the breeze wandered softly, brushing the delicate leaves as if whispering secrets only the forest could understand. Eve's fingers traced gentle patterns on the child's soft hair, a slow rhythm measured by the pulse of the earth beneath them. Adam's eyes traced constellations, but his heart lingered in the quiet glow of family, tethered firmly in this present sanctuary. The garden they had lost lay beyond sight, yet its essence wove invisibly through the space around them. It hummed in the cool night air, in the scent of earth and growing things, in the pulse of life circling them like a circle of ancient firelight. The memory of that place was less a ruin than a seed, waiting in shadowed soil for sunlight and patience to awaken it again. In this silence, Eve breathed deeply, tasting the dew-fresh night. The world felt endless, both fragile and resilient, a tender balance held in the small acts of care that define their days, a shared glance, the steady rhythm of touch, the laughter that even sleep could not still. Adam spoke softly, his voice a current in the quiet. The trees around us, they have stood watching since before we came, rooted, yes, but reaching always towards new light. They remind us that loss is not an end, but part of growth. Eve nodded, feeling the truth in his words settle in her bones like old stone. And the stars, she added, eyes lifted, they are the stories carried forward, not just by us, but by our ancestors, and our children, and the ones yet to be born. Each is a spark, kindling the future from the past. Their child, still cradled between them, stirred gently, fingers curling around Eve's hand. The innocence in that touch was a freshwater spring, pure, unspoken hope. They were guardians now, custodians of a light neither cheapened nor dimmed by sorrow. Around them, the night sang an ancient song, a symphony of rustling leaves, distant calls, the steady murmur of the stream winding through the land. It was a lullaby older than memory itself, cradling their family in a timeless embrace that promised safety and continuity. In this moment, Eve felt an openness within herself, a well of resilience strengthened by love. There was power in tending to what remained, in nurturing what could yet bloom. The garden, though lost in one form, flourished anew in acts of kindness, in shared stories, in the embrace of this night. Adam's hand found hers again, a quiet promise in the touch. We carry the garden with us, not just in memory but in every step forward, in every choice to love, to protect, to hope. As the night deepened, fatigue crept softly, a gentle tide washing over them. The child's breath slowed and evened, sleep deepening beneath the watchful gaze of stars. Eve and Adam remained still, anchored in each other's presence, bound by the sacred rhythm of belonging. From beyond the trees, a lone owl's call echoed, clear and steady, marking the passage of time, the continuity of life's pulse. The stream babbled softly, a thread of song weaving through the shadows. Together they were a small constellation of warmth and promise, nestled within the vastness. Their shared history a lantern, their love a hearth flame, both capable of lighting the way through darkened paths yet to come. In the slow unfolding of dawn, the first pale light would seep through branches and across sleeping earth. It would draw the world anew, inviting them to rise, to nurture anew, to walk forward with mindful gratitude and patient hope. Here, in this sacred space between night and day, loss was not final. It was an invitation, a beginning held tenderly in the palms of time. And so, as the world turned quietly toward morning, Eve, Adam, and their child rested in the gentle certainty that even after great sorrow, life would find a way to bloom again. The garden lived on, in memory, in love, in the silent promise of each new day. A soft glow tinted the sky as the first threads of dawn began weaving through the dark fabric of night. The stars, dutiful sentinels until their last breath of twinkle, slowly gave way to a pale, hopeful light. Eve stirred in her arms, feeling the warmth of the earth beneath her, and the gentle rise and fall of Adam's chest beside her. Their child, now sealed in slumber, breathed peacefully between them, a quiet reminder that life, no matter how fragile, goes on. The coolness of the early morning air mingled with the whisper of leaves. The trees swayed with gentle sighs, as if nodding to the promises whispered in their shared silence. Eve traced a finger along the curve of her child's cheek, drinking in the innocence of that perfect, unblemished face. It was here, in this moment, between the remnants of loss and the dawn of possibility, that she found the strength to carry on. Adam reached out, brushing a stray hair from Eve's forehead. His touch was soft, grounding. "We plant new seeds today," he said, voice low and sure. "Seeds grown from the love that still lives in us." She nodded, her heart steadying within her. Though the garden they once knew had vanished, it had left behind soil rich in memory and hope. With every beat of their hearts, with every breath, they continued the ancient act of nurturing life, quietly defiant against the shadow of what had been lost. The child's fingers twitched slightly, a gentle stirring that felt like an echo of the life that would continue, weaving its quiet rhythm into the fabric of the world. Eve smiled, a tender curve born of fierce protection and boundless love. "Together," she whispered. Adam wrapped his arm around them both, the family united under the vast, waking sky. The call of birds grew sharper, more assured, as one by one the forest seemed to breathe awake alongside them. It was a reminder that though paradise can be lost, the world carries itself forward, endlessly renewing. A scent of wildflowers, damp earth, and fresh leaves floated on the breeze. The promise of new blooms, of roots digging deep and branches reaching higher. Eve drew the scent in, letting it fill the hollow spaces left by sadness and fear. "Look around," Adam murmured, his gaze steady. "The garden sings still if we listen, not as it was, but as it will be." They rose slowly, cradling their sleeping child between them. With tentative steps, grounded in love and the weight of shared history, they made their way toward the soft, golden light that spilled like a blessing through the trees. The child's breathing was the rhythm of hope itself, steady, innocent, a silent vow whispered beneath the dawn. Eve felt it carry her forward, a lullaby woven from stars and soil, from whispered dreams and enduring strength. In that serene morning, as light crowned the world anew, Eve and Adam carried the fragile garden within their hearts, planting stories in the fertile earth of tomorrow. The past, though lost, would live on, not as sorrow, but as a quiet, enduring song of beginnings yet to come. The soft brightness of the morning stretched further across the land, painting long shadows that retreated gently, as if bowing to the promise of a new day. Eve's hand lingered lightly on their child's smooth forehead, feeling the steady rhythm of breaths, a tender, slow heartbeat that echoed survival. It was fragile, yes, but alive, a delicate thread woven through the fabric of loss and hope. Adam's eyes traced the horizon, where the sky shifted in quiet symphony, pinks melting into pale gold, the kind of light that whispered not just of endings, but beginnings yet to bloom. He spoke softly, his voice carrying the weight of both sorrow and resolve. "We are here," he said, "and that means we carry the garden still, not as it was, but as it can be." Eve nodded, warmth settling in her chest like the gentle pulse of dawn itself. The world was far from the perfection they once knew, yet the seed of life, the fragile blossom cradled between their arms, promised something enduring. Everything they had lost rested beneath their feet, in the rich, dark soil where roots now sought to deepen. Around them the forest breathed, leaves shimmered with dew, tiny creatures stirred beneath fern and moss, stirred in the undergrowth with cautious hope. The scent of wildflowers, heather, lavender, and a subtle earthy moss, wove through the air, wrapping the family in a quiet benediction. Life was tender and patient, coaxing its way forward amid the ruins. Adam carefully rose, steady and deliberate, steady despite the shadows still carried within him. "We must tend to this place," he said, voice a soft resolve, not to reclaim what was, but to create what will be. Each small step is a new beginning. His fingers brushed the earth as if feeling the pulse beneath, a silent promise made to the soil, to the future. Eve stood beside him, her gaze drawn outward to the waking world. Somewhere beyond the towering pines, the sky unfolded toward distant hills that beckoned with quiet invitation. The past was a delicate thread that wound through their hearts, but it did not define them. What mattered most was this breath, this moment, this fragile emergence from shadow. The child stirred, eyelids fluttering softly, small fingers twitching in a fleeting stretch. Eve's smile was almost imperceptible, a secret bloom beneath grief's heavy shroud. Life, no matter how tender, persisted, steadfast as the dawn itself. They had known loss, but here they were, held together by a quiet fortress of love. Adam extended his hand, palm open and welcoming. Eve placed hers within it, fingers threading carefully together. The warmth between them was a tether, steady and unbreakable. "We'll build from this," Adam said, voice a low hum in the morning light. "Not with grand designs, but with patience, with care, with the gentleness our child deserves." Together they stepped forward, slowly, intentionally, into the unfolding day. The forest, a living mosaic of growth and grace, surrounded them, alive with possibility. Every whisper of wind beneath leaves seemed a murmur of encouragement, a reminder that no ending is ever absolute. Eve's breath caught in her throat, not from sorrow, but from the delicate hope twining through her soul. This was a moment suspended between what was lost and what could be birthed anew. The garden they had known was gone, but its essence lingered like a heartbeat beneath the earth. It was theirs still, if they chose to nurture it. Adam's gaze met hers, steady and full of quiet promise. "We carry the seeds," he said simply, "not only for ourselves, but for all the days ahead." They moved forward, each step measured and tender, carrying with them the richness of memory and the fragile glow of dawn. In the steady pulse of their child's breath, in the endless stirring of the forest, in the rising light that gently filled the space around them, they found the threads of a story still unfolding. The loss of their garden was real, but it was not the end. It was the beginning of something unspoken, something waiting patiently for the touch of love and time to bloom. And so they walked together toward the light, toward the quiet miracle of a day yet to come.